Let's get a quick take on the passing of Denver Broncos owner Pat Bowlen after a long journey with Alzheimer's disease. Bowlen will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this fall and owned the team during several Super Bowl appearances and 2 World Championships. 3 World Championships. I can't forget the 3rd one. Patty Calhoun from Westward. I've already seen on Twitter that folks are saying, let's call it Pat Bowlen Stadium at Mile High. What do we think of the legacy Pat Bowlen will leave in the city of Denver?
Well, among other things, the realization that no matter how wealthy you are, you can succumb to a horrible situation like Alzheimer's, and your family might fight over your inheritance, which is going to happen with the Denver Broncos. Even better would be if they just named it Mile High Stadium or Broncos Stadium, because let's remember, we were the ones who paid for it.
That's a very good point. And Taxpayer Stadium just isn't the same ring to it. Good point. David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Pat Bowlen led the Broncos during a very successful run, but he also made a significant stamp on the Colorado community, the stadium not being the only one, but certainly the biggest one. What do you think his legacy is?
Well, I think the only one at the table who was actually a political opponent of him, because the Independence Institute opposed what happened in the late 1990s, where he threatened to move the team to Los Angeles and blackmailed the city and the taxpayers, including the ones who couldn't care less about football, into buying a new stadium for him. But that said, he was unquestionably deserves to be in the Football Hall of Fame. He is one of the great and most influential and effective owners of the last 50 years.
Natasha Gardner, Articles Editor of 5280. Denver loves its Rockies and its Nuggets and its Avalanche, but there's nothing like the passion this town has for the Broncos, and it's even around the region. How much of that do you think has to do with Pat Bowlen?
I think a huge part of it, yeah. I mean, the city has a special passion, a special heart for the Broncos. I mean, this is still a town where you don't plan a Sunday event without first checking to see if the Broncos are playing. You don't go anywhere on Sunday without first checking if the Broncos are playing. And that's, whether you're a sports fan or not, that impacts your life. But I think that's also what's interesting, is that Pat had a big role in what the history of the city has been for the last few decades. But his legacy will continue with that stadium and the team that's playing there and that neighborhood. The city around that space is changing dramatically every single day right now. So I think, we're moving into his legacy and conversations about that, his name will remain a name that Denverites know for a long time.
Joey Bunch, Deputy Managing Editor at Colorado Politics. You have the perspective of, since you've lived around the country and you've been in Colorado for a long time, but not the whole time that Pat Bowlen's been the owner, you've got a perspective outside the city of Denver, outside the state of Colorado. What's the impression of Pat Bowlen outside of the Centennial State?
Well, I'm a Saints fan, diehard Saints fan, and there was a long time that we would have liked to have had Pat Bowlen as the owner of the Saints, but that didn't happen. This is huge for Bronco Nation. I can't imagine that anybody other than John Elway could leave a larger hole in the hearts of Broncos fans. And his legacy exceeds the city of Denver. He was the chairman of the committee that negotiated the $18 billion TV contract that set the stage for all the sports contracts that we see now. He hasn't run the team since 2010, but after a period of mourning, I think we can start talking about the Brittany Bowlen era. I don't think the Bowlens are going anywhere.